A second time. I call the member for Maitland and Shadow Minister.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I rise to support the Public Health Medical Cannabis Bill of 2017, introduced by the Leader of the Opposition, who continues to lead debate in this state, and he is now moving to legislate for change. All of us in this House have been touched by terminal illness. Every one of the people in this chamber have a story of someone in their electorate, their family or friends who fought a battle with cancer or suffered from some other terminal illness or an ongoing chronic condition and disease like multiple sclerosis, where symptoms such as numbness, tremors, spasms and seizures are suffered. It's a time that is very dark for both the sufferer of the illness and for their family and loved ones. I've had numerous representations from people in my electorate, people who have been directly impacted by the failure of this government to implement compassionate legislation on this issue. As the member for Keira said in his quite moving speech this morning, this has not become a question of why would the government support this, it's why not. People are calling for this legislation in our community. And to the member for Port Macquarie, who spoke just previously about this debate, if the government was really committed to doing something about medicinal cannabis legislation and improving the medical regulation, they would be looking to this bill, and if they had genuine concerns, amending it rather than sticking their head in the sand like ostriches. This bill has a very simple aim. It's not a trick. It's not a slow move to softer drug reforms. The Leader of the Opposition explained this very clearly in his second reading speech. He said, it's about restoring dignity to people with a terminal illness or serious medical condition who are seeking temporary relief from their pain and suffering. And this is a very noble aim. It's about helping those who are suffering greatly, offering them temporary relief in their time of greatest need. And most importantly, what this bill does is talk about medical regulation, talking about supply and cultivation in a way that means that those people who are currently on trials, who come to all of us and talk about the concerns they have at being treated like criminals in accessing their supplies, that they are no longer subject to that. Clause 4 of this bill outlines some of the illnesses where medical cannabis can be permitted, and those who suffer from cancer, from HIV, severe intractable epilepsy or multiple sclerosis are just some of the examples, and those are listed very specifically on the bill and can be changed by regulation. They are all eligible under this legislation to apply for use of medical cannabis. This isn't an exhaustive list, but these are some of the most common terminal illnesses that affect citizens of New South Wales across the state, and they are covered by this bill. These illnesses have not been chosen randomly. We can just stick a pin in the page and say, well, that looks like something we might want to let people use dope for. They've been chosen on the basis of evidence submitted to the Legislative Council inquiry into this matter. They're conditions and illnesses that cause pain. They cause seizures, spasticity, nausea and other symptoms. I'm sure everyone in this place remembers the first time they heard of the plight of Daniel Haslam, and we've had many members in this place refer to his case. The 20-year-old boy who was diagnosed with inoperable bowel cancer, whose parents just wanted their son to have some relief from the insurmountable pain that he was suffering from. After going through chemotherapy treatment, which many of our community have to endure, he would come home ghostly white, he would have to vomit it in a bag, and after the administration of cannabis, the colour would come back to his face and his appetite would return. His mum, Lucy, had to traverse her local coffee shops for someone who may have connections in order to purchase more cannabis. And it defies logic to me, Mr Speaker, why those who say they advocate and support the Haslams would come into this place and speak against, and ultimately we know they will vote against a bill which could have addressed the issues that that family had to suffer in such a terrible way. There is no reason, no justification for carers or indeed patients to have to experience this kind of issue, this lack of access to a drug which will provide them with relief, which we know will provide them with relief. The carers of those with terminal illnesses and serious medical conditions should be able to purchase medical cannabis through a regulated and legal scheme. Now, Clause 5 of this bill outlines detailed, responsible sets of regulations which set out how sufferers and carers can access medical cannabis. It's not a random bill, it's not an irresponsible bill, it is a bill that requires regulation of the supply. It requires sufferers to possess a medical certificate confirming they suffer from the terminal illness or serious medical condition, and once they are certified, they will receive a certificate of registration which will include a recent identification photo. These aren't onerous regulations, but they are clear that they ensure that no one who is not terminally ill or suffering from a serious medical condition can get access to medical cannabis. And I reject any of the arguments that claim that giving those who suffer from a serious medical condition or those with a terminal illness access to medical cannabis is some Trojan horse to securing drug decriminalisation. That is an outright lie. This bill is about giving those in our community in the most desperate circumstances the small amount of pain relief or other symptom relief that they need from their terrible symptoms, that they suffer on a daily basis. We come into this place and this bill occupies our consciousness for a day or a couple of days while we talk about it here. For the people who are requiring the leadership of this parliament on this bill, it is a daily, an hourly, a minute by minute and moment by moment struggle to understand how this government can be so tardy in implementing their long-promised reforms in this area. And they are looking to the government to follow the lead of the Leader of the Opposition on this bill. It's about giving them the legal ability to take medical cannabis, not to do so in a public place. It makes an offence to administer. It's about looking after that very private and terrible situation that that people in that form of illness suffer. On the AMA's website, they acknowledge that certain cannabinoids are effective in the treatment of chronic pain, and it can be especially effective in contrast to opiates, which can be extremely addictive. In 2015, when Daniel Haslam died, I, like many in this place, reflected on the circumstances that he and his family had to endure. I reflected on the circumstances of the many people who have come to me with tears in their eyes and desperation in their hearts at watching their loved ones suffer from the terrible indignity of pain, of other symptoms that cannot be alleviated through other means, and watching the lack of action by this government. We will never know the achievements and successes that someone like Daniel Haslam could have gone on to achieve in his life, but the fact that his life was full of pain and suffering, and that this government will do nothing to contribute to improving the quality of life for people like him, is absolutely a disgrace. We in this place have an opportunity today, Mr. Speaker, to pay tribute to his life and to the campaign that his parents have been such passionate, persuasive and tireless advocates for, by accepting the medical evidence of our own inquiries and the knowledge of those who've suffered through terminal illness, who know that medicinal cannabis can provide them with effective pain relief. I am perplexed at why the government members would walk in here with speeches of support but actually give no support, give no hope. We know, of course, if this bill is enacted, the regulated supply and administration of medicinal cannabis will lead to many more studies due to the greater opportunities to observe patients. The working group trial that the member for Port Macquarie talked about, it's been going since 2014. That's 3 years. 365 days each year. We're getting up to 1,000 days of suffering for those patients. They've spent $9 million on this, and what have they achieved? There are so many stories of desperate families around this country seeking out cannabis to give to their chronically ill family members, to give them some relief. Some of these families have had their cannabis seized and have been treated like criminals. This is absolutely a disgrace. We've got women who are helping out families in need to stop the seizures of an 8-year-old girl being treated like a drug dealer. This is completely beyond the pale. The bill in front of the House today ensures that those who desperately need medicinal cannabis will get access to it in this state. And I encourage everyone in this place, everyone on that opposite side of the chamber, to vote for this bill, to support those in your community for whom this is a life-changing bill, to look beyond your own prejudices around drug users and to actually act for the medical benefit and quality life of our community.